Hey, what's up guys, you get Gypsy and we are back here today. It's been a little bit of a break from the NPL. We did have the Summer Showdown tournament run by the Toke Minorities. That was last week, and it took up, or this week, it meant we had a week off from the NPL, so that explains why there hasn't been any coverage from the NPL. But what a way to come back. We do have an exciting game, week 7, up against Matty Brollic, a really good friend of mine. And yeah, my friend Matty has a very powerful team. I'm going to preface this team builder because I'm going to go into some serious depth into my sets, because I'm incredibly proud of this team that I built this week. I put enormous amounts of time into it, and I'm going to preface this by saying Matty's team, although people have referred to it as a meme team, and Matty initially didn't use all of his points when he drafted more of like a fun trick room kind of team. He had a lot of underrated mons in the lower tiers that were still good, but not as good as something he could have got from the higher point tiers. But nonetheless, Matty is a fantastic user of Trick Room, and his team is really heavily centered around Trick Room. That's why he's had such success with Crabominable this season. So that was a strong meme at the start of the season. But Matty has proved the league wrong. He's got like Crab. I don't know how many kills Crab has at this point in the season, but it has just been tearing through the league. Under Trick Room, it's just a menace, and it's so hard for so many teams to build and prep around. And my team is no different. I mean, I do have Cool Fish on my squad, but it still really heavily pressures my team. He has stuff like Hooper, which under Trick Room is just devastating to every team. He's got Caphagrigus, which can be a Trick Room sweeper in itself. And he has enormous threats like Scolipede, Crocodile, Mega Blastoise. Meloetta is always an amazing threat, especially in the hands of Matty, who quite likes Meloetta. He's pretty fond of it, and I've seen him get pretty creative with it in the past. Then he has Archeops, and my team actually, outside of Throw, has no rock resist at this point in time. So yeah, Archeops can be definitely a significant threat to my team. He's got Whimsicott, which is a massive annoyance to my Hydreigon, which, as you can see here, is a Specs variant and really goes in versus Matty's team. But yeah, Whimsicott is a big problem because it does force potential predictions with Flamethrower and U-turn. Whereas if he didn't have a Fairy, I could just spam Dark Pulse and Draco quite recklessly. But if he does decide to bring Whimsicott, which has a really fantastic matchup versus my team, then he could really be able to counter my Hydreigon. That being said, we're going to jump into the team that I've brought today, and we do have the Hydreigon here with the choice specs, as I just mentioned. This mon is a really nice hole puncher versus Matty's team. Now he has mons like Bronzong, which literally counter Landorus T unless I run like Z Dark. He has a fantastic check to my Landorus T and my Diancie in Bronzong. So yeah, Bronzong matches up amazingly versus my team, and Hydreigon is basically here to take advantage of the Bronzong if he does decide to bring it. I can make some nice pivots. I can make some aggressive doubles into my Bronzong, into my Hydreigon on the turns he decides to switch in his Bronzong, or I can even just bring it in hard on the Bronzong, as there's not too much Bronzong can do to my Hydreigon. As this set is amazing to punch holes in order for stuff like my Diancie and my Suicune and Landorus to put in the work. Just pretty standard coverage moves on this thing. Basically, U-turn is really solid. If he does bring the Whimsicott, I can sort of scout out how aggressively he's going to play with the Whimsicott. If he determines that I'm a spec set, like a choice lock set, he may be more hesitant to let something take a hit, and as a result switch into Whimsicott, as it is pretty safe versus Hydreigon. It's still going to force 50-50 situations with Flamethrower if he does expect me to have it, but it's always nice to have U-turn in the back in case I do need to pivot out on a potential Whimsicott. It's also really solid for Hooper. It almost kills No Bulk Hooper, which is really nice. I think it might even be a roll to kill No Bulk Hooper, even with a timid nature. So that is really important. U-turn is very nice versus Matty's team, and it's important to have that, as I said, if the Whimsicott is brought to this game. The next mon on the team we have is Landorus T. Now this is a pretty bulky defensive set. As I mentioned, Matty has stuff like Scolipede, Crocodile, potentially physical Hooper. He has Crabominable with close combat. He has Archeops. He has so many offensive threats that can just really dent my defensive core and just plow through if he does bring a really hyper-offensive team like that. And it's important to have this sort of Landorus here to take on stuff like the Archeops, to set up rocks, which really hinders his team. If I can get up rocks early, that is really going to be chipping down stuff like Scolipede, the Hooper. The Archeops is really important, putting it into fetus range, because once that thing is into fetus range, it's easily taken on by the rest of my team. Rocks is really solid. Z-Fly is predominantly here to blow back the Blastoise after it's taken a round of rocks and an EQ. I can just kill it with Z-Fly. It's also really solid to have in an emergency situation versus like a Calm-Minding Meloetta versus a Scolipede that's out of control. And as Protect, I can just Z-Fly. Very, very nice for a lot of his team. Obviously, it also blows back Whimsicott, which could be a big annoyance as it does match up so nicely versus me. Stealth Rock's pretty essential, as I mentioned, and U-Turn, obviously, again, just really solid versus his team. Stuff like Hooper just gets OHKO'd by my U-Turn, which is really nice, because Lando's just powerful. Even with that attack investment, I'm still base 145 attack, so yeah, U-Turn is very nice, and it does allow me to scout damage versus his slower stuff like Dralagon, Meloetta, Cathagrigus. It's important. U-Turn is just a very no drawback move on this set. So yeah, Landorus is looking to put in the work. It's very defensive, so it can be a late game win con as well as a buffer to his physical threats in the early and mid stages of this game. So the next one we have on the team is Diancie. A really, really nice Diancie set this week. Trick Room functions to make Diancie a late game win con if he does decide to bring a fast team. This is the thing about Matty's team. This is what makes his team so threatening, what a lot of people seem not to understand about Matty's team. The way Matty's team is structured, he has command of the speed tiers. If he decides to bring Trick Room, he can outslow his opponent. If he decides to bring Speed Pass with Scolipede, he can obviously pass speed and stuff like Crocodile, which he has done in multiple games, and just outspeed the entire opponent's team, even Scarfers after a few speed boosts. And then he can also run stuff like Z-Snatch on his Hooper, which does give him, his Hooper is a Z-Mon, which is hugely threatening, but Z-Snatch does give him double speed on his Hooper, which is nice. So he's got multiple ways of controlling the speed game. He's also got Tailwind on Whimsicott, which is very, very solid as well. And he's got multiple Trick Room setters on his team, and Trick Room is devastating versus my team if I bring like a really offensive squad this week. So Diancie is really nice for a couple of reasons. Trick Room can function as a counter Trick Room versus his team. So if Diancie is in a situation where it's gonna be able to live a hit, but Trick Room is up, and Trick Room is has just recently been set up, and the rest of my team is going to be swept by like a crab under Trick Room, I can just click Trick Room that turn to counter his own Trick Room and play accordingly from there. It's also a very nice win con, as if he does decide to bring a really fast team, Trick Room can allow Diancie to underspeed Scarfers such as Scarfed Archeops, Scarfed Hooper, Scarfed Crook, boosted Scolipede. I'm at a range of speed where I do naturally outspeed Jolly Max Speed Crook anyway, as well as a few other relevant mons on his team. There's stuff like Meloetta as well. But, under Trick Room, this thing will be able to threaten his Scarfers. The bulk on Diancie is very solid for this game too. It does allow me to live a few hits, notably stuff like Earthquake and Aqua Tail from a Jolly Scolipede, which is important. And Diamond Storm essentially just nets the KO on Scolipede, does good damage to Meloetta if he's a really spit F set, and if he gets the Calm Minds up, I still have a way of wearing that down with Diamond Storm. Even with the timid nature, it's still a very powerful attack. Moonblast, very nice versus his team. Obviously he has the Bronzong though, which is a big roadblock, and if he does bring the Bronzong, it will be pressured to check both Landorus and the Diancie, which is quite nice. I do have a way of trapping that and taking care of that as well. As obviously my Hydreigon, which is another fantastic way of just breaking down the Bronzong. But Diancie looks to go in versus his team. If Bronzong goes down, or if he elects not to bring Bronzong, then he has very limited responses. Switching to this monster, even without max special attack, I just 2-KO essentially his entire team. And if we get up rocks, that's going to be fantastic for Diancie to potentially win this game. So next up we have Suicune. A very nice physically defensive Suicune this week. Calm Mind Rest, Skull, Toxic. So Toxic's basically here to hit the stuff like Whimsicott, who may want to switch in, especially if I show Calm Mind. Matty and I have this kind of like long running joke between us about people bringing Calm Mind water types, like Carmine mono water types versus his team with a Whimsicott. It's a bit of a joke between us. I'm sure he'll get a laugh out of it. But yeah, Toxic essentially allows Suicune to check its checks essentially in the form of Whimsicott and potentially Raw Blastoise or Haze Blastoise. I can get a Toxic off, rest up, Toxic stall that out. Carmine is a very nice win con. If I can get a few Carmines up, stuff like Carmine Meloetta won't be able to beat me as well because I do have Toxic. Even if he has Psyshock, I do have a Hydreigon and I do have a Celesteela on the back. Carmine is just very nice to be able to buffer the blows from Blastoise too, because Dark Pulse is going to be doing a decent chunk. I don't have any Spit F, but once I get some Carmines up, I'm going to be chewing those hits, as well as wearing him down with Toxic. It's also going to allow me to take Energy Balls from Whimsicott easier, which is important. And if he's not Taunt or Encore, for some strange reason, I can just Carmine and rest up in the thing's face. A very, very solid one. Very nice buffer to stuff like Crabominable as well, because if he is a Trick Room Crabominable, which is something that I'm heavily expecting, I have a really, really nice strat to lure that thing in and trap it with Gothitelle. But in order to do that, I do need to have a pivot in the form of Suicune to switch into Ice Hammers, or Ice Punches, which my Gothitelle isn't going to want to take, anywhere near as much as it wants to take a close combat. A very nice mon, very solid win con. It also helps me check stuff like Archeops and Crocodile, which is very important. Can also 1v1 a Calm-Minding or Nasty Plotting Cathagogus, which is nice. Then we have we got the nice Tech Iron Ball on this Gothitelle. So this Goth this is something I'm very, very proud of. If he does decide to bring Trick Room Crab, this is what I was saying earlier about Matty's team. I gotta respect the Trick Room bring. I gotta respect the Speed Pass. I've got to respect the Tailwind. I've got to respect multiple ways in which he can control the speed game in this match. I do have a few different ways of checking, the Scolipede, like Speed Pass variants, but it's more important that I have a way of checking Trick Room, because Trick Room is devastating to a lot of teams, especially like kind of balanced teams like mine that rely on speed to outspeed opposing threats, and like somewhat bulk to take a few hits and then just Oko back. Under Trick Room though, Crab is devastating, and as a result we have this nice Iron Ball Goth. So this speed and this Iron Ball allows me to guaranteed outslow min speed Crab under Trick Room, and due to Goth's ability, we do trap Crab and I can blow it back with Psychic. Even if he's like max HP, if he's taken around a Rocks or around a Life Orb, or he's got a Spit F drop from close combat, then he's finished. He's done. This Goth is also very useful for trapping the Bronzong, which I feel is a fantastic bring versus my team, purely because I do have the Diancie and the Lando, which it does check quite nicely with a combination of Gyro Ball and HP Ice. Something like Colbur could be really solid for knockoff Lando, or like Z Dark Lando and the Hydreigon as well. So I feel like it could definitely come, and it probably will. But this Goth does trap it actually, because I am Calm Mind Rest. I can rest up on any Toxics or Gyros. Gyro's obviously going to be doing nothing. Heavy Slams won't even be doing too much because I'm max HP, and Goth is really bulky. Like Goth's got 95 base defense, so that's really, really solid. It's a very nice way of removing certain threats. If he's not Taunt or Encore Whimsicott, again, I beat that 1v1. I outslow the Crab. I can take any hit from Crab from full too, so I can take an Ice Hammer if he's even if he's banned, which is really nice. And yeah, this Goth is a fantastic tool in this game. It's probably not going to win unless Diancie sets up Trick Room late game, in which case, and his team is weakened, in which case Goth could really come in and just start spamming, max special attack, or essentially max special attack, Psychics and Signal Beam. Signal Beam obviously for the Hooper. At +1 I blow it away with the Signal Beam. Signal Beam again for Crocodile as well was really solid. Under Trick Room this thing is devastating. I opted, sort of contemplated going Trick Room of my own over Rest, which would have been really nice, or Trick Room over Calm Mind, which could have been pretty solid, but overall I felt like Rest and Calm Mind were nice to 1v1 the Bronzong. So that is the Goth. And the last one we have on the team is my Celesteela. A bit of a mixed defensive Celesteela this week, pretty nice in this matchup. A nice buffer to stuff like Scolipede, even Crocodile. And obviously the Crabominable is a big threat to my team, so I wanted to have a way of, I mentioned earlier, of pivoting. A way of getting my Goth in safely on a close combat is important. If I go harder into Suicune, I can then pivot into my Goth on the close combat and knock him out with Psychic. But it's always nice to have another defensive mon in the back, and we do have Celesteela here, who with the SpDef investment can also take on stuff like the Blastoise. I can get a Leech off, get a Toxic, start protecting, getting my health back. Very nice to have Heavy Slam for stuff like Whimsicott. It doesn't do a ton to Hooper, it doesn't do a KO, I believe, but it will do a nice chunk, a sizable chunk. I do expect him to be like Z Thunderbolt or something on his Hooper to just blow away my Celesteela, so it's nice to have Protect there to be able to scout for Z moves. Obviously, this also beats Bronzong 1v1. He can really take on the Meloetta unless he's T-Bolt of his own, and has Carmine T-Bolt, so that's nice. And it's a very nice secondary response to stuff like Archeops. That is the team. I'm extremely proud of this team I've built this week. The reason I'm so proud is I've created a team that I can use. I can play safely with this team. I don't think I have a great matchup in this game. I think Matty has an extremely threatening team, and although it's unorthodox and it's a bit sort of different to what he'd usually draft, or what people would usually consider quite good, it's a Trick Room. It's a devastating offensive Trick Room team, which is the sort of thing that Matty loves. He pioneered Trick Room in draft, he pioneered it in OU, and he's got it for himself this season. And although his record doesn't reflect how well he's performed, don't let that fool you. He's performed really well this season, and he has lost a few games to hacks, so his record would be higher without that. And even with this sort of unorthodox team, he's put on amazing results with it. So that said, I think I've built a team that can guarantee me a win if I play it right. I can play safely with this team. I can let Matty make predictions, let him play aggressively, as long as I preserve my win cons and preserve my way of winning this game. And barring some sort of ridiculous hacks, ridiculous hacks that's out of my control, I should be able to take this home. So I'm feeling very confident going into it. Hope you guys enjoyed the team builder. It was a bit longer this time, but there was a ton of thought process that went into it, and I literally spent days and days polishing up, building, mocking, touching up, considering multiple scenarios. Haven't prepped this hard for a game since probably my NPL finals against Zazo, which, yeah, it's always fun to go up against Matty and Zazo, both a really good friend of mine, both fantastic players that require a lot of prep if you want to play well versus them. So, yeah, that was the team builder. I'm going to pause it here and we're going to jump into the game and see how it all... Alright guys, so we are back here with a match up against Matty, and as you can see, he's rocking the nice sun in my eyes, Nick, Alt, and yeah, shoutouts to Amir. Yeah, but we're back, and yeah, Matty has brought a pretty threatening team, as I did expect in the team builder. I went into that. He does have the Abominable, so this does sort of scream to me that he's either Trick Room or he's Tailwind. Crab, well, that's what I was expecting at matchup anyway. He could potentially be Trick Room Hooper, he could be Trick Room Whimsicott, or he could be Tailwind Whimsicott or Tailwind Archeops. And he's going to have rocks on either Archeops or the Crook. Overall, my best play here is leading with my Diancie, as it does potentially prevent his Archeops from rocking turn 1. He obviously has access to Z moves, so he can steal moves, so he can obviously scare me out, but it will help me get some great information turn 1. So I'm just going to lead off with my Diancie, as he does lead off with his Crocodile. Obviously, Bronzong is not here, so Diancie is looking to go in this game. If you look at his team, where's the Moonblast switch in? Because I don't see it. I mean, Blastoise can switch in once, but then get up rocks, thing gets too occurred. So Diancie is looking amazing in this game. He has ways of checking it offensively, obviously, but in terms of switch-ins, they don't exist. So his Crocodile is going to come in here. I'm going to protect turn 1. He doesn't reveal to have... no, he does have Intimidate, but I'm Clear Body, so I block that. So he's not a Moxie variant, which is important. So he's more than likely a bulkier Crocodile, which is something that I found interesting. I'm going to go for Protect here, as he does just go for the Earthquake. And the only reason you stay in versus a Diancie if you're Matty with his Crocodile here is if you're a Sash variant, if you're a Roselli Berry variant, or if you're a Scarf variant. Either way, Diancie goes absolutely in this matchup. I'm not going to risk it. He can make the aggressive Rocks play here if he wants, which is a very aggressive play, but a fantastic play, as he does make the Rocks play. So very nice aggressive play. Matty knows me well. Matty knows I'd not throw away my Diancie there. He probably thought that I recognized his Crook would be able to live a Moonblast anyway, and it wasn't worth me risking that with my Diancie. He also probably didn't expect me to have a ton of bulk on Diancie either, so it was actually a roll for me to live an Earthquake. I'd need quite a lowish roll to live an EQ from even non-invested Crook, because Earthquake is stab. I'm not sure of the investment on his Crocodile, but if this was like a really bulky Spit F Crook, I still would have needed a very low roll to live. Matty makes the rocks play knowing that I wouldn't have risked DNC turn 1. Like, that's just a bad play. Like, obviously had I stayed in there, it would have been amazing. I would have got rocks. I would have 2AK'd this Crook, even if it was Roselli Berry. I would have been in such a fantastic spot, but I wasn't going to make that play. That was reckless. Like, DNC goes in this game, and I don't have to play aggressively in this game. I've constructed this team in such a way that I can afford to play safely, and that's a very important thing when you guys are building for games. If you can do that, if you are confident enough in your building that you can construct a team like that, I definitely recommend you do that, because it can allow you a lot of leeway in game. So now my Lando is going to come in. I'm going to scout out what sort of speed tier this Crook is at. I'm going to go for rocks here. If he is fast taunt, then that's good to know, as he does reveal a taunt here. So we are not able to get up rocks, which is obviously like annoying for my team, because had I got up rocks, DNC has an easier time taking on Blastoise. Archeops is chipped down by rocks, and everything else takes a nice 12, apart from the Crook here. But he is fast. He does reveal it. His knockoff is very weak versus my Lando. I am obviously, like, I do have a Z item and I do have the Intimidate, but it's still a Crocodile. So he's definitely like not a very offensive Crook, as made evident by the fact that he stayed in versus DNC and he had the Intimidate. So my U-turn here is going to do a nice chunk, putting this thing in range of my DNC's Moonblast. As now I can just click Moonblast. He doesn't have a switch in. He has a Roselli Berry, but even through the Roselli Berry, he does go down. So in is going to come the Blastoise. Now, I don't really have a reason to stay in here with DNC. I could have protected here to scout if you wanted to switch to his Whimsicott, as I go hard into my Hydreigon or my Suicune, but I do just switch out and go into my Suicune here. If you wanted to make that play of going out to Whimsicott, I didn't gain a whole lot by staying in and protecting anyway, as I would have had to switch out the next turn because I didn't want to take an Energy Ball. So, overall, I wouldn't have gained much even if I had stayed in there and protected. So I'm just going to go out into my Suicune here and take this Skull like a champ. Suicune choose. We'll get our lefties back, and now I can just fire up a Toxic, because nothing wants to come in. If he wants to go into his Whimsicott, then I'll happily poison that. If he wants to go out into his Hooper, I'll get a Toxic off on that, really wear it down over time if he's like a bulkier variant. His Dark Pulse is going to do 30, as we do get the Toxic off on the Blastoise. Now, here, if he wants to try and just 2-KO me, I can go for a Calm Mind here, which will put me out of range of another Dark Pulse after lefties, and I can proceed to rest up on this Blastoise. But he actually makes the play of going for Roar here, so very nice prep on Matty's part. He brought the Roar in an attempt to not be swept by Calm Mind, Suicune, I suppose, and other potential setup sweepers on my team. I'm now going to go out to DNC, which is possibly the worst thing I could have been roared out into, so pretty unlucky, but it's raw, like it happens. I'm just going to go for Protect here in case he wanted to go for Scald here. If he does roar, he roars himself out because of Magic Bounce. He roars himself out into something on his team, and if he goes out into something like Hooper, that would be amazing. I'll be able to get a Moonblast off on that, and either take it out or weaken it severely to the point where it can't come back in on rocks if I get my rocks up at some point in the match, or it's just revenged by anything else on my team. Unfortunately, he does get roared out into his Archeops, and this is unfortunate because this Archeops could be like a head smash variant, which it probably is, which will kill my DNC from this range of health. I'm just going to switch out into my Celesteela here. I could have just gone for Protect out of Scout, but that would have meant that I would have been banking on him being Scarfed, and if he wasn't a Scarf variant, he still could have knocked me out the following turn with a head smash. But he does just go for the U-turn here, and he does bring out his Crab, as I am in with my Celesteela. Now I'm defensive, and his Crab, even if he's banded, can't 2-KO me. So I'm just going to go for the Heavy Slam, as he does go for the Close Combat. So that really doesn't do too much. It does 43, like obviously he does a nice chunk, revealing he is Adamant, but he's not a boosting item, which is interesting. And he's faster than my Celesteela. So this is a very speedy Crab. So unfortunately Goth, my nice anti-Trick Room Goth set, isn't going to come in this game as a Crab response. However, it may still come in as a Trick Room Sweeper. If you look at his team, Blastoise is Toxic, it's at 81, in range of 2 Psychics after poison damage. Hooper obviously won't get killed by Signal Beam, but it'll do a nice chunk if I can weaken that. Psychic is going to be doing a lot to the Whimsicott, and Whimsicott can't do a ton back to my Goth. obviously Psychic is going to put Archeops into fetus range as well. So yeah, Goth is actually looking pretty in a pretty solid spot if I can get up Trick Room. But Crab is going to be able to do a ton of damage here. I contemplated, like, if I was if I was fast Goth, if I was non-Iron Ball Goth, I would have obviously gone into Goth on the close combat, as Sail Steel is way more valuable in this matchup than Goth is at this point, as it does take on stuff like the Hoopara, the Whimsicott, the Archeops at full. You know, I wouldn't have taken the initial close combat, but unfortunately, because we are an anti-Trick Room Goth, even after a close combat, we will be at a point where he will be able to outspeed us and take us out with an Ice Hammer. So that's, yeah, very unfortunate. But you know, Matty brought a fast Crab, which was definitely cool. Fast Crab is obviously revenged by the majority of my team, but it does outspeed my walls like Celestealer, and it does actually outspeed my anti-Trick Room Goth. So it definitely worked out for him in this matchup. Nonetheless, I'm just going to protect here to get myself a little bit more lefties back. And I will be able to take out this Crab here with the next Heavy Slam. So this is nice. Unfortunately, Celestealer had to take a ton of damage, which isn't the best, but looking in a really solid spot now, because now I know he doesn't have Trick Room. Trick Room plus Crab. Goth is a lot more expendable, and my team is looking in a really solid spot. Like, Matty has been playing this fantastically, but I'm in a fantastic spot. I'm right where I want to be. And now his Blaster is going to come in here. I'm just going to go for Leech Seed on the off chance he wanted to predict me to play safely, as I have been playing quite safely this game. He may have gone for the Roar here, expecting me to go for the Protect to get a little bit more lefties back and a little bit more Toxic Chip, but he actually does make the play of going for Dark Pulse there. So nice play on Matty's part. He read my Leech there. Either way, Celestealer was kind of out of the game at that point. It wasn't going to be doing a ton more. It was going to take another 12 on entry after the Rocks damage, and it was going to be at a very low amount of health, basically dying to anything. It may have been able to live a Whimsicott's Moonblast, but even so, I'm not sure about that. If he was like offensive, it was probably done anyway at that point. So I'm now going to bring in my Hydreigon. He's revealed not to be too specially attack invested, so I don't think he does have Aura Sphere, as here he does just go for the Scald. So he's more than likely Roar, Scald, Rapid Spin, and I forget what his last coverage move was. But yeah, his Blastoise is at a range of health where it will be 2KO by Dark Pulse, and Scald is not gonna do a ton. It does 21, so we do chew that up pretty nicely, as now he is going to switch out into his Whimsicott, preserving Blastoise as a sack, which is a nice play on his part. It will allow him to sack it off to something like Diancie if it gets a free switch in versus the Hooper. Or even, you know, my Landorus coming in. But he's going to go into his Whimsicott here, revealing he takes 49 from that Dark Pulse. So this is definitely a more offensive Whimsicott, which is important to know, as I can just go out to my Gothitelle here. If he wants to go for a Moonblast, I can take that, and if he doesn't have U-turn, I can just kill him with a Psychic. But he is going to make the play of going for U-turn here with his Whimsicott, and that damage reveals that he was Expert Belt Timid. He didn't have, he could either have been Expert Timid or Naive, and he wasn't Naive or Hasty because he only took, he took 49 from the Dark Pulse. He would have taken more if he was Naive, and I doubted he was Hasty because there's no point to run like an attack boosting nature, a nature that doesn't minus attack even if you do have U-turn on Whimsicott, so he was more than likely Timid E-Belt there. He's now going to bring in his Archeops here, and I know for a fact that he's going to go for U-turn. Like, he could go for Head Smash here, but he risks putting himself in range of Defeatus after another one, and if I get up Rocks, like if he knocks out my Goth here, I can just go into Lando and get up my Rocks, which is going to be really nice, or even just Z-Fly this thing. But he does just go for U-turn here, as I do just click Signal Beam on the off chance that he wanted to go into Hooper after the U-turn did not kill, but he does sack off his Blastoise. So now it's 5-3. Goth is obviously going to go down here, but if he does go for U-turn, I know he's scarfed Adamant at this point. If he does go for U-turn, I'm going to get some good information about who he wants to go out into, and I can play accordingly from there. So that's what he does decide to do. He goes for the U-turn, as the Whimsicott is going to come in here. I got into my Landorus because he went out to Whimsicott before I chose who I wanted to switch in, because he did go for U-turn that turn. And yeah, I don't really want to switch in anything else versus this Whimsicott. Because it's offensive, I do expect it to have Energy Ball. It has shown U-turn, Energy Ball. It's probably got Memento, because Matty's brought Memento to essentially every game he's brought this to, I think. So I'm expecting some sort of setup versus me, or Tailwind. So I did think this was probably going to be a Memento variant of Whimsicott. So he's going to have like Energy Ball, U-Turn, Memento, and probably Moonblast on this set to take care of my Hydreigon. But I did find out after the game that he did actually have a knockoff on his Whimsicott, so he couldn't actually kill my Hydreigon, which is cool. But he did have U-Turn to get the faster pivot out because it does outspeed Hydreigon. So right here, I'm gonna go for Z-Fly. I go for Z-Fly here because it nets a kill. If he goes into Archeops to scout, he gets put into Fetus range, which makes it just that much easier to take on. And if he's Moonblast, he can't kill my Landorus. So I'm going to go for Z-Fly, as he does go for the Memento here. So he lowers my attack, which is very telling. He's now going to go into his Hooper here. And even at, -2 attack, this U-Turn is still going to do a lot of damage. But he goes for the Z-Snatch here. So this is really cool. This is a really nice tech. Nice Z-Snatch. Boosts his Hooper's speed, which is a very nice use of Z-moves on Hooper. We haven't seen, that much creativity yet in the league. And it's very cool to see Matty utilize it like that. So he's going to get the +2 speed, but this U-Turn is going to do a shit ton to this Hooper. Obviously would have killed if I wasn't at -2. It did 60% at -2, so that's crazy. But yeah, this Hooper is definitely a big threat. He's now at +2, and if he is like Psychic, Focus Blast, which he could be for, if he's like Dark Stab, which I do expect, Focus Blast and Thunderbolt, which I thought was very likely looking at my team. Focus Blast for the Hydreigon, Dark Pulse for the Gothitelle, and Thunderbolt for stuff like Celesteela and Suicune. Then my Diancie will be able to live a hit from this range of health. He literally needs a max roll, and I think 64 was the max roll. I think 64.5% was the max roll on Focus Blast, and I was at 64 here. So I've got a very, very solid chance of living this turn. And if I click Trick Room with Diancie, I win. I win 4-0. So if you see at this point, he has this Hooper, which obviously outspeeds my Diancie, and he has a Scarfed Archeops in the back. So if I click Trick Room this turn, I win 4-0. But for some unknown reason, I'm still sort of questioning why I ever made this play, as it accomplished literally nothing. I'm gonna go for Protect here, and this was a choke of sorts. This was just a very unnecessary play to make. Even if I Protect and Scout for some sort of coverage move or some sort of way to OHKO Diancie from this range of health, there's nothing I can really do about it. Like, I'm just forced to sack Diancie or sack another Mon and hope he doesn't have coverage for Hydreigon. So it was a very poor play on my part. You'll very rarely see me choke. I can't think of the last time I actually choked a game away. Not since I joined the NPL, that's for sure. But at least I think that's the case. But I go for Protect here, and there really wasn't any reason. Like, even if he did have Psychic coverage, I'd have to take a Psychic hit before I went for Moonblast or before I went for Trick Room anyway. So it didn't make any sense. And I just made an awful play, which happens apparently. And he is going to reveal the Hyperspace Hole. So this is going to do a lot to my Diancie. We do hang on, so obviously we could have set up Trick Room and just won there, but I do make that awful Protect play there. But that is okay. That is okay. The game is definitely not over. Diancie will go down here to the Hyperspace Hole. I can now send in my Hydreigon, so I do expect this thing to have electric coverage still for my Celesteela and for my Suicune. And I do expect him to be Dual Stab. He has shown Psychic, so I expect him to be Dual Stab. I don't expect this thing to be Focus Blast at this point. So my Hydreigon will be able to easily tank a Dark Pulse and just knock him out with the U-Turn. So this is really nice. We're now in a situation where I have the game in the bag. Because I do have Landorus with Intimidate, and his Archeops is forced to either click Stone Edge or Head Smash to take on the rest of my team. Which my Landorus and my Suicune can stomach a hit at -1. So I'm going to go into my Hydreigon here to sack it to the attack from Archeops and to scout what he wants to lock himself into. He does choose to go for Head Smash here, so that's very important. Head Smash is going to be putting him closer and closer in range of Defeatist, which is important. Landorus here will be able to stomach an Adamant Head Smash from this range of health, because I do have the Intimidate drop and I am really, really bulky. I'm going to go for Fly this turn. His Head Smash does a ton, but we were guaranteed to live that hit. And he's now at a range where when he takes my Fly, he will be in range of Defeatist, so Suicune will 100% be able to tank a head smash. He obviously misses as I fly up in the air. I now put him at 37, so he's very low. Now do 37, put him at 22, so he's guaranteed in range of defeatist. He's at -1, so this hit did, I think, 16% max to my Suicune. I calced it, because I'm obviously a really defensive Suicune. Even if I was like no bulk Suicune, I guarantee live this attack. And we win 1-0 after choking what would have been a 4-0 win with Diancie. However, he crits me. So yeah, that was that's Pokemon for you. Obviously we lost the hacks there, but it was totally out of Matty's control. Definitely wasn't like Matty's fault or anything. No one can control the hacks in this stupid game, but that was, yeah, it definitely leaves a bad taste in the mouth. A very sour way to end what was a fantastic game. I thought Matty played this game really, really well. I was very proud of the way he played. I thought he brought a really cool team. That fast crab, he brought a really fast Crabominable this week, and that caught stuff like my Celesteela off guard. It definitely put Goth out of commission in terms of how effective it was in checking a potential Trick Room crab. So yeah, he definitely brought a great team. That Archeops was a very nice spring versus me. But I'm so proud of the team that I built for this week. Very happy with the way I played. Although it may have looked like I played very safely, and that I was getting played in some ways. I was playing safe because the team I'd built ensured me a win. Unfortunately, obviously, getting crit last turn is a thing. It was a theme this week. I think someone else got crit last turn. I won't spoil who, but I think that happened. Very unfortunate. I won't lie to you guys. It's stuff like this that does sort of make me lose desire to put so much time and effort into Mons, because I felt like I played this exactly the way I needed to win. And my prep was fantastic. It covered multiple ways Matty could approach this game, and Matty as well had some really fantastic prep. But when a game ends like this, it just makes you sort of question, like, why am I putting so much time and effort into something that can be affected by that can be lost by a 6% chance. It is very frustrating, and it's something that I'm used to. I've been hacked a shit ton in the past couple of seasons of the NPL, but in saying that, everyone gets hacked. Shamu was in such a crucial turn of the game. He got a crit the turn before this crit on Lander, which obviously didn't matter, but it's just sort of added insult to injury that he get a crit on the very last turn. But if there's anyone that I was going to get hacked out by to lose a game, I am glad it's Matty, because he's one of my closest friends in the community, and he himself has been hacked a lot in his NPL season and in his other leagues. So if I was to lose a game to bullshit like this, I'm glad it somewhat helped Matty potentially clinch a playoff spot in his upcoming weeks. So that's Mons. There's nothing you can do about it. Very, very proud of the way I played and prepped, and obviously proud of my opponent Matty. It's always a fun one when we play, and I hope you guys enjoyed, despite the way this game ended. If I'd won that, which obviously I should have, I would have secured my spot at top of the league 100%. I think I was top of the league already before this game, but I would have cemented my position and really cemented my spot for playoffs, essentially. But because we got crit, it does put us in a spot where I do need to, I think, win another game to ensure that I'm locked for playoffs or something like that. I think that's the case. I may already be, but it is very close in my conference in the 3rd and 4th place spots, as well as like 1st, I think. So yeah, I will have to win another game to lock myself for playoffs, which obviously I plan to. But next week we face off against Jolt. And that's going to be a fun one, because Jolt is another very good friend of mine and a fantastic player in the format. So very excited for that. Hope you guys are looking forward to it. Make sure you go and check out Matty's side of the channel. I highly recommend it. He is a fantastic player. He's got a different style than I do, but equally, like, Matty's regarded as one of the gods in the format, and justifiably so. He played this game amazingly, so props to him. Hopefully we can have a clean game the next time we play. Obviously, I know Matty didn't enjoy winning like this. He actually offered me the win after. He said, like, he felt really bad, but I declined. Like, he played very well this game, and if this win helps him make playoffs, then I'll be happy. It won't be a waste, it won't be for nothing. So yeah, hopefully Matty does make the playoffs, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Definitely go check out his side of the game, and I'll be back next week for my match up against Jolt. So I'll catch you guys next time. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments if you did enjoy, your thoughts on the game, etc. And I'll catch you guys next time.